Road.
Hello, Marvin Pierce, dog teacher. We came back tonight. We've been off a couple of weeks. I had a knee replacement, so I've been laying a little bit low. Well, a lot low, really. And Bianca and everybody's been taking care of the dogs and the kennels and training and doing lessons for me. And so a couple of things tonight, I think Brett just asked me what I was going to talk about, and I didn't know, but the subject came up to me the last few days about teaching dogs to play tug. I don't know. For me, I've always been kind of against that game of playing tug with dogs just because of the bad things it creates for people that don't understand it, I believe. For me, it goes back to the same thing as playing ball or frisbee or fetching a stick or a rope or whatever. If a dog can't give it to you when you ask them, then for me, I feel you're doing something wrong. You shouldn't have to take anything from a dog. They should always give it. And for me, the bad thing about tug is if you're not careful and a dog don't get a good hold, they'll grab for another hold, and that's when they'll get a hold of you. Or they're always trying to play tug with their leash when you're trying to lead them. One of the reasons I say this is we've had a 100 and some pound pit bull up here in the kennels lately, and we've been having a little bit of trouble with it. Some of the gals have. For him jumping on them because he's wanting to play games and they don't want to play with him. And for me, a lot of times the owners will play with the dog, and maybe sometimes the owners have enough control on the dogs that they will quit when the owners ask them. So I'm not disking the owners for that behavior. The thing is, for me, is the dog I feel should behave when he's with other people, regardless, because nobody here has tried to play tug with him. Nobody's tried to wrestle with him, and he's intimidating anyway. He got a head the size of a dining room table, and he's just a big dog, and he's really strong, but he's a puppy. I don't even know if he's a year old yet. So for me, whenever you get to playing tug with dogs, I can't see anything good come from it. I don't really see a reason for tug. Can you do it? For sure, you can do anything with a dog if you train a dog to do it. But like I said, for me, it goes back to playing ball, frisbee, stick, fetch, anything with a dog. I feel when a dog brings you something, they should give it to you. If you ask them to drop, they should let it go. That should be the end of it. And if you ask them to leave it, they should be able to walk off and not have to go grab it or try to grab it out of your hand. You shouldn't have to hide the ball behind your back or the frisbee or hold your hands up in the air so the dog can't get to it. They shouldn't jump for it at all. For me, there's no reason for them to take anything out of my hand like that. And we're not going to be on here very long tonight, so if anybody got any questions, throw them out pretty quick because we'll probably be on here in 10, 15 minutes and we're going to bail off. So another thing for me with dogs is the command to sit and stay. I feel if people start that as a younger age with a puppy, it makes it a lot easier in some aspects. But for me, I feel that when a pup gets like 6 months old, they're a lot easier. They're easy to train in because they're actually trying to mature a little bit. So they've got a little bit more patience with you. They try to respect you a little bit more. Some of the puppiness I feel is growing out of them. So whenever you start teaching dogs to sit, stay, I don't never tell my pups to stay until I've taught them to stay. Once I've taught them not to get up and walk off without being asked, then I'll put a word with it. And it goes back to us. We do the same thing with barrel work. We teach a dog to stay on a barrel. And for me, it makes it a lot easier on the owners of the dogs a lot of times to use a barrel or something elevated just so the dog's not on the ground. Majority of the dogs here, once we've taught them barrel work, when we go to the vehicle, then we can teach them to load up pretty easily for people because a lot of the pups that come here are 6, 8 months old, year old, they don't know how to load the vehicle yet. And it makes it a lot easier once we've started teaching them to jump on a barrel or get up onto something off the ground. So Bianca, you got anything you want to add tonight? Besides it's hot?
Yeah, it is hot. I think talking about the tug thing should go, that applies to any toys.
It is, and that's what I was just saying with a ball, with a rope, with a stick. Yeah. Anything that a dog has. For me, I will not play tug with my dog.
And roughhousing with them, even without the rope or toy.
And it makes it hard for people to, for me, I feel it goes back so many times that if you train your dog, then you can do pretty much anything you want to do with them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you've got to make sure that a dog understands when you ask them to quit, they have to quit now, not later. And it makes it hard. For me, it makes it hard on these dogs when you roughhouse with them. Like I was saying earlier, even if you could stop them, does that mean that the person at the kennels where you board them can? You know? Will the dogs behave there? Not always, you know. And for me, if we got to train on a dog, it's not fair to our other dogs and customers that are here for our training if we got to spend our boarded dog time training on somebody's dog because they won't respect us. So, and speeding up and down my driveway, you know, while we're on the subject. People drive up and down the driveway, even myself, you know, I get in trouble for my wife. I get in trouble more for going across the field than I do up and down the driveway because I usually drive pretty slow on the driveway, but going across the field, I speed a little bit once in a while. But for me, I look at my speedometer and I'm doing 7 miles an hour and I think I'm doing like 2 miles an hour. So sometimes if you think you're not speeding, just look at your speedometer and if it works, then it's probably not going to lie to you too bad anyway. But we've had a lot of people speed up and down the driveway. Today I asked somebody to slow down going down my driveway, and hell, I think they went down it faster than they came up it. And so I'm not for sure why, but they probably won't be coming up and down the driveway no more. So the thing is for me, it's just we've got little kids that run around out here, and my wife's old dog's out here, and me out here gimping around now. I might fall in front of somebody, who knows, but I think it's just a courtesy to respect somebody's speed limit on their property anywhere.
Kay asked a question if you are ready for it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure quite what she means.
Who's this?
Kay. She said, why do some dogs really fight setting like a boxer?
Sitting.
Fight sitting. Oh, fight sitting.
Fight sitting. You know, for me, I feel that, and we've had a couple boxers that I really had a hard time with getting to sit. And that little pug-nosed dog up here.
He's up there right now, Rocket.
Rocket. When that lady brought it, that dog just refused to sit, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel that sometimes it makes it hard on them to sit. And I mean, it's, of course, everything's a person's opinion, I guess. But even scientific proof is only scientific proof by the person who proofed it. So, but I feel sometimes when dogs, people try and teach them to sit, they push on their hips, which spreads their hips apart, their legs apart, which makes it uncomfortable for them. So then it hurts. So then they don't want to sit. And with the one boxer that I had up here, I actually collected his feet together some when I got him to sitting. And as soon as he figured out, he just instantly started sitting and he wasn't no problem. The little Rocket dog was the same way. Once they figure out put their feet together instead of spread them apart, it makes it easier. But people always want to go to the hips and push down on them real hard. For me, if I go to the hips with my fingers, I usually take one finger and I'll go right between the hip bones and just touch it a little bit. And a lot of times I'll just go ahead and try to sit down. Not always, because like I said, the little Rocket dog, and we've had a few boxers that really fought it. And the dog you had here, was it that hound dog?
Yeah.
Bird dog?
Yeah.
Bird dog.
Yeah.
It just really refused to sit. But once it learned to sit properly, I mean, that guy say sit, it didn't matter if it was on leash, off leash, it just sit down on the ground.
Yeah.
So I think it's more about maybe it's uncomfortable for them when they try to sit, and people don't take the time to realize that.
Help them be comfortable.
And help them be more comfortable to sit.
Yeah.
Dari has a question if you're ready for it.
All right.
She said, hey Marvin, what are your thoughts about proper introduction between two dominant adult male dogs?
Boy, you know, that's a hard question to answer without actually seeing the dogs, being with the dogs, being around the dogs. We do that a lot here. Who asked that question, by the way? Dari. We run into that here a lot with people and with dogs, and I feel that the worst thing to do is have a person who has no confidence trying to be involved in it. Another thing is let the dogs have a tight leash. And for me, normally, if I'm going to do a situation like that, I want to take one of the dogs and introduce them to another cool dog, if I have my choices, and teach that dog how to have manners to introduce himself to dogs, and let dogs introduce themselves to him. And then I'll do the same thing to the other dog, and then I'll try to introduce the two dominant dogs. But majority of the time, if you have really good control and respect from your dog, it makes life a lot easier for them. For me, sometimes you can walk the dogs in the same directions on leash, have one on each side of the person away from one another, and then bring one dog in between the two people, and then bring both dogs in between the two people and keep walking the same way. I don't like to walk dogs to one another as much to meet and say hi, just because of the fact that then they can bow themselves up and try to argue a lot more. So for me, like I said, I would try to introduce them, if I can, to a really nice dog. And you know, I feel that there's so many of these dogs that get labeled as dogs that fight that don't really want to be labeled that way, and they shouldn't be labeled that way. people put them in those situations that they can't win, and then they get, like I said, they get labeled as a dog that wants to fight, and it makes it hard to introduce them to dogs because of the fact that people can't control them at that time because they've let them get away with so much, and they pull on the leash and they snarl and gripe and bark and argue and stuff, and it makes it bad on them. But I feel that if you can get them introduced to nice dogs and make them behave, and sometimes put a muzzle on them if that's what it takes to get them introduced. Sometimes I feel that some dogs a muzzle might kind of backfire because it makes the dog feel more like he can't protect himself, and so then he's really got to try hard to fight to keep from getting beat up. So I think sometimes a muzzle can do the opposite of what we want if we're not careful with them. All right. More questions?
No. Daria just said she's always encouraged people to do that with a trainer.
Yes, me too, yes. I always try to go to somebody that trains dogs and that's used to training that type of dogs, you know. I mean, it's hard to... confidence, I tell people, always is something that's free when it comes to anything in life. You don't have to pay for confidence. You build your confidence yourself. For me, a mind game, there's a guy on that ropes a lot, Tyson Durfee. And I agree with a lot of things he says about the mind game, For me, it's always been huge for me with working dogs and team roping. And I played darts competitively for a few years. And anything like that, it's such a mind game. If me with playing darts, if I could get into somebody's mind in a dart tournament, I could kick their ass. And me, I felt if they let me get into their mind and get them aggravated or whatever, it wasn't my fault. It was their fault for doing it, as long as I was doing it politely, And so it can work both ways with somebody. And when you come into the dog training, I don't know if it hurts anymore when a dog bites you if you're confident and if you're not confident. But I know that you're more likely to get dog bit if you don't have the confidence. And there's, like I always tell people, there's a difference between being confident and cocky. You don't want to get overboard on the confidence thing. You get yourself in trouble. But for me, if I feel a dog's going to get in trouble or get in a bad dog fight, I might put it off for a day or 5. Who knows? I'm going to get out of that situation and try to figure out. And sometimes I just quit and think about it for a day. What could I do differently? What could the dogs do differently? How could I get the dogs to approach one another differently? And I'll go back. I'll watch my own training videos sometimes and see if there's something there that I'm missing. I'll watch other people's videos. Here the last 3 weeks, Monday will be 3 weeks I've been laid up, and I don't even know how many hours of videos I've watched. And some of them I've seen so many times, it's like, shit, I know what they're going to do and what they're going to say before they ever start talking. But still, I go back and try to refresh my memory on some of the stuff with dog training. And I feel that with dog training, there's a difference. Like Bianca works with us. She's as bad as me about wanting to train. She loves it. She loves working with the dogs. She loves working with the people. And I think that's a lot of difference versus any kind of job you have. If you just only do it for the money, it's not near the rewarding at the end of the day as it is if you love what you do. And me with the dog training, I've always done that. I built fence for 20 years, and I always took pride in my fence jobs I done, the quality of work I done. So I rested better at night knowing that I did a great job and not took a shortcut. But I don't think I got the enjoyment out of building fence near like I do working with dogs because of the fact that it's so more enjoyable. And I think it's easier on my body. I don't know, I walk a lot of miles on the mountainside out here, but it is a lot of fun. So,
got a couple questions for you, Marvin.
All right.
Susie asked a question, how do we request training with you specifically? Where are you located? I live in Bethany with my 2 dogs.
She lives where?
Bethany, Oregon, I'm guessing. I'm not sure where Bethany is.
Well, you go to marvinpiercedogteacher.com is our website. You can jump on there, and all of our information's on there. The phone numbers. And you can get a hold of Jocelyn. She's normally the one that answers phones in the office. Saturday, sometimes Quinn will or Bianca. But get a hold of her and just schedule us up something. We've got all different kinds of options, prices. I mean, depends on what a person wants to do, whether they want a board and train or whether they want to do lessons or whether they want to do a group class or whatever. So, yeah, just jump on there and get a hold of us, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, perfect. And then we're located in Sherwood. You are located in Sherwood.
Yes, in Sherwood, Oregon.
Perfect. Susie said, I have my 2-year-old dog who is leash reactive, not necessarily aggressive, just overexcited when she sees other dogs and even people sometimes. I hope to hear you. She didn't ask a question, she was just saying.
A 2-year-old dog.
Yeah.
And for me, a lot of times the breed of the dog makes a lot of difference. But it still comes back to, if a dog's leash aggressive, they're not very well trained on a leash. I mean, I'm not never saying that in a bad way, because that's the reason we have a business, and most dog trainers do, is because of the fact that we have dogs that just don't understand what we want. A lot of times it's because they don't understand the way we ask. I mean, I feel here that the dogs understand me pretty well when I ask them something, and they respect it. I mean, not all dogs, because we have some dogs that are ornery than others, but I feel we've been pretty fortunate. We brought some dogs in here that were really bad, and now they're cool dogs. And Bianca thinks she seen one of them walking down the street today, and the lady was taking it for a walk, where a month ago they couldn't take it for a walk because it was too dog aggressive and growly, and drag him down on a leash and not behave. And now it's a pretty cool dog. We had that with our dogs here, with a whole pack, 30 dogs. Well, probably 50 different dogs, but usually 15, 20 at a time. But it was just because of the fact that I feel we took our time with that dog, and we got it respecting us and learning to be with good dogs before we put it out with a pack of dogs. So, and with the dogs that are aggressive on a leash, somehow you got to get the leash loosened up without just letting it go. I mean, and for me, it goes back to a dog like that. You definitely want to get help from a trainer. Just don't go ask your neighbor if you can let your dogs play, because it may not come out good.
Sorry, said, best advice for someone who wants to hike, go to the beach, and live life off leash with their dog. What basic steps should the owner do to achieve this goal?
Well, for me, always, I couldn't imagine owning a dog that doesn't have 100% recall. We get people all the time that say, yeah, my dog comes to me every time I ask them. And then it takes it 30 minutes to add the accept. When there's a seagull or a boat or another dog or a skateboard or a car or a bird or a squirrel or a deer or a horse or another dog. For me, it goes back to getting a recall on your dogs and getting respect from your dogs, that they don't need to go meet every dog on the beach or on the forest or on the trail. Teach your dog to stay with you. You know, I mean, if I ask my dog to stay by my leg, that's where he needs to stay. Whether it doesn't matter if we're on the beach or in town or up in my dog kennels or up in the woods or where we're at. But that's the thing that, for me, I feel that a leash hurts so much with people, is they get so dependent on a leash. Their dog don't ever get to the spot where they want to be. And we have a 6-package lesson now that we do with Ecollar training to teach dogs recall. And I'm not so sure now that everybody that's been through that, I think any of them could take their dog to the beach and turn them loose, anybody I'm aware of anyway, and have fun with their dogs and keep control of their dogs. So that's the hardest thing for people. Is actually, somebody the other day went to the beach with their dog, and their dog done so good, and 2 hours into the trip they figured out they forgot to charge their battery on their controller, or on their collar, so their collar wasn't even working, but their dog behaved so well. And for me, the reason their dog behaves so well is because they done the collar, the 6-lesson package deal we have, and they followed through with it, and their dog knew that it had the collar on. The person knew they had the collar on the dog, but the person didn't know that the collar was dead, so therefore the person had confidence that their dog's going to listen, and that's why their dog listened. So for me, that's the ultimate way to go. And you've got to get these dogs around everything. I mean, you can't hardly train your dog in a Walmart parking lot, and then all at once you want to go to the beach or the river or down the trails through the woods with the deer and stuff and expect your dogs to behave. So get them in different situations. For me, always before you get them in different situations, you want to keep them in a controlled situation. And here at the ranch, I feel that's one of the advantages that we have right now, because we've got 6 or 8 or 10 different fields and pens and woods and round pens, and we got a lot of dogs and people around that we can use to help us with these dogs. And we had goats and chickens and cows and horses and dogs and all kinds of stuff. So we had a lot of things to help us with the training on our dogs, and we still have everything right now except for goats. We got rid of that the other day. So you got any more questions, Brett?
We sure do. We have one more. Searching through it right now. Would it e-collar work better than a prong collar to teach a stubborn 115-pound Akita to heel properly?
Under 15-pound Akita?
115
Oh,
pounds.
115. You know, it all comes back to the trainer. Who's asking this question?
Rodney Corbin.
For me, it all comes back to, normally for me, before I put an e-collar on a dog, I always start out with a choke rope that I use on my dogs, a leash. And I use that just because there's no pinch collar, there's no prong collars, there's no electric collars, there's just rope on them. So I could let my dogs pull around on me, I can pull around on my dogs, I see how my dogs do. And then I go to either a pinch collar that we use or a prong collar. And then I'll go to the e-collar. And for me, it just all adds up to when I growl at my dogs, there's going to be a consequence for the behavior. And then once I teach them that, then I go with a pinch collar. So when I growl, I can make the pressure from the pinch collar match my growl. And then whenever I go to the e-collar, it'll be the same thing. But yes, for me, the e-collar, I feel, for the majority of the people, is so much better than a prong collar or a pinch collar. Although I use all the above. I use the pinch collars, I use the prong collars, I'll use the e-collar. But if you start out with a pinch collar, then go to e-collar. And like I said, if you don't know how, get some help, because you can get yourself in trouble with e-collar, especially with a big dog or aggressive dogs or anything like that.
Awesome. Courtney is just dropping in. She says hi. She just dropped off her Great Dane Bodie off this weekend for board and train.
I heard that.
And she's just excited, so she's just saying hi.
I heard he was a big dog and he likes to jump on people. But I heard he's cool, so that's good. All right, so we got any questions?
Yeah, and Patrick says hello.
Hey, Patrick.
Patrick Bauer says hello. Cowboy. And then Samantha asked, Marvin, is it better to have your dog neutered or non-neutered?
You know, that's always a loaded question, and I think it comes back to the scientific facts that I don't have. Me, I've got a female dog up here. I just had her spayed. She's a year old. I had her spayed the other day because I'm not going to raise no more pups from her. Did I need to? No, not necessarily, but it's 2 more weeks out of the year that I get to use her for my training program to help other dogs be better dogs. I've got a male border collie up here, a stud dog that I breed once in a while, the dog. He's 4, 5, 6 years old. You wouldn't know he was a stud dog if I didn't tell you. But I feel that for majority of the people, probably better than neutered dogs because of the fact that if you don't, they can get some bad habits that you don't control. And then before you know it, you got to figure out how to control it. Some of the bad habits, it seems like it's harder for them to get rid of once they've been neutered. So, in my opinion, yes, I'd probably neuter my dogs.
That's it for questions right now, Marvin.
All right, well, we're going to bail off here and eat some dinner. So, everybody remember, go to MarvinPierceDogTeacher.com. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, MeWe, and check us out. Let you know what I think of our program. Thanks a lot. Y'all have a good evening.